آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We continue in Buloogh Al-Maraam with the great Imam Ahmed ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who died 852 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam, on this day of Sunday, March 17th, 3:30 p.m. on the 10th day of Rajab, the year 1440 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. We continue in the chapter of Kitab al-Nikah, on the chapter of Bab Ishrat al-Nisa, the chapter which is in regards to having good dealings with the women, a good interaction with the women. We was discussing the hadith of Abu Hurairah, where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, إذا دعا الرجل امرأته إلى فراشه فأبت أن تجيء فبات غضبان لعنت الملائكة حتى تصبح. والحديث متفق عليه واللفظ للبخاري. As we discussed from last class, that if a man that he calls his woman to the bedroom or to the bed, and she refuses to come, and he comes upon or remains upon the night angry and upset, that the angels curse her until the morning time. There's a narration which is in Muslim, as we discussed, that the one who's above the heavens will remain angry upon her until her husband is pleased with her. Until her husband is pleased with her. So the man calling his wife or spouse to the bedroom, as we discussed from last class, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his narration use words what they call to show mannerisms and respect in this regard. Notice that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used words to show what they call muru'ah or chivalry, and to show chivalry and honor and respect. Instead of being vulgar and just saying acts to come use the vulgar words, rather the Messenger of Allah says calls her to the firash. He didn't call her to the bedroom or to the bed. And one would know what the meaning is based upon the context. And she refuses to come, meaning she rejects his call. He says that فَبَاتَ غَضْبَانَ لَعْنَتْهَا الْمَلَائِكَةِ. He says, and he comes upon or remains upon the night upset, then the angels will curse her. We were discussing, based upon this narration, how the characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breaks down to two categories. We said that it breaks down the category which is dhatiyya and fi'liyya. That the characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala break down into what is dhati and fi'li. It is from the characteristics of His essence and the characteristics of His actions. As we discussed, this hadith gathers between both categories. For number one, you'll find, as we said in the narration, if you look in your books, which is in Muslim, that the one who's above the heavens. Above the heavens, meaning the characteristic of ulu, the characteristic of the aboveness or loftiness and highness of Allah, as far as His essence, meaning He Himself is above the heavens. كان الذي في السماء ساخطا عليها حتى يرضى عنها زوجها. That the one who's above the heavens. So that's to affirm the characteristic of ulu. The ulu. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the heavens. And that's the characteristic of His essence. That characteristic never goes away from Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always above His creation. He is never mixed with the creation, nor is the creation mixed with Him. Allah ta'ala is above the creation, and He is separate and distinct from them. He is above the heavens and above the arsh in a manner that befits Him ta'ala. And just because He's above the arsh does not mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll find that the people of bid'ah, that the people of the Asha'ira today would say that necessitates that he sits upon it. No, it doesn't. Just because something's above does not mean that it needs it or it sits on it. That's the misunderstanding in your mind, in which your intellect has come to this type of nonsense, and as a result of it, you negated it. So you fell into resemblance, then you negate it. As we said, this is the tariqah, the method of the Asha'ira. What they try to flee away from, they fall into it. And as a result of them falling into it, they negate it. Or they distort its meaning. So they said, as a result of Allah being above, that means he sits on the arsh, as they say. There's nothing, first of all, the word sit has never comes in the Kitab and Sunnah. You use that word in order to cause confusion. But no one from Ahlul Sunnah has a text from Kitab and Sunnah saying that Allah sits. That narration or that word, you came with it, not the people of Ahlul Sunnah. Just because something is above, that does not mean it sits upon it. Just because something is above does not mean that it has to what? That it needs something just because it's above it, that has to sit on it. You'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this in his book about things that are above the heavens. They are above. And at the same time, they don't need nothing to hold it up. For example, the sun and the moon. They are above the heavens and above us. And they don't need nothing to hold it up. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how He raised the heavens and the earth. He raised the heavens without anything holding it up, as it comes to Surah Al-Ra'd. In fact, it's in the second ayah in Surah Al-Ra'd. And the second ayah, which is in the Surah of the thunder. The thunder, Surah Al-Ra'd. You'll find in the second ayah, if not the third ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He's the one that raised the seven heavens without any pillar holding it up. Which means that there are things from the creation which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made above us, and there's nothing that needs it to hold it up. If that's what the creation, what about Allah? Just because Allah is above does not mean He needs something to hold Him up. That is an understanding that the Asha'ira, or the people of deviance, came with in order to cause confusion and cause doubt in the people that Allah is above the heavens. As we know that the word julus, the word sitting, is غير وارد في الكتاب والسنة. It does not come in the Kitab and Sunnah, the word julus, or sitting. It's not used in the Kitab and Sunnah. Allah affirms that He created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. Then He specified the arsh بصفة الاستواء. And He specified the arsh that He ascended above it. And just because, like we talked about before, just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the heavens and above the arsh does not mean that He needs the arsh. Allah wa ta'ala particularized the arsh with ascension for wisdom He knows and we do not know. But Allah wa ta'ala does not need anything He created. That is the aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah, that Allah wa ta'ala is ghani, ghina'an dhatiyan. He is self-sufficient. He does not have the characteristic of need of anything, whether it be the arsh or the heavens and the earth or anything He created. Allah wa ta'ala is self-sufficient and free of any need. Just because He's above the arsh does not mean He needs the arsh. Allah wa ta'ala does not need anything He created. طيب. So we said in the hadith that the characteristic of ulu, of aboveness and loftiness, has been affirmed in this hadith. And we said that characteristic of aboveness and highness and loftiness has been affirmed in Kitab and Sunnah, not only in the Kitab, not only in the Sunnah, but also the fitrah and also the ijma' of the Salaf. That is an affair, the aboveness of Allah being from His characteristic of His essence, meaning Allah is always above. Even when Allah descends, He's above the creation. When He's above, when He descends, He's above. When He comes on the day of resurrection, He'll be above. Allah is always above His creation. He is never, tabarak wa ta'ala, He is never mixed with the creation where they are in Him or He's in them. That is the belief of the people of ilhad and deviance, especially the people of Sufiyah. That they believe that they're one with Allah and Allah is one with Him. So you'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, as we said, Allah's aboveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being above, is a characteristic of His essence. Sorry, pardon me, everyone. I thought there was an alarm going off in the car. No, so we said that the characteristic of Allah, of ulu, aboveness, is a characteristic of His essence. And that's been affirmed, of these are from the narrations that establish this aqeedah, or this belief. This is from those narrations. If you look at Sahih Muslim, it says clearly that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who's above the heavens, will remain angry upon the woman who refuses the call of her husband when he calls her to be intimate with her, and she's not partnered due to a justifiable, legitimate excuse. It comes in Kitab and Sunnah. So the characteristic of aboveness is established in this hadith. He says, the one who's above the heavens. Notice it also says the second category, which is sakhitan alayha. Sakhat. Sakhat meaning that he's angry with her. Angry with her, that is a characteristic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's actions, which is the second category. And we said that the characteristic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breaks down into two categories: the category of His essence and the category of His actions. And that this hadith gathers between both categories. The characteristic of ulu, which is the characteristic of His essence, and the second one, which is sakhat, Allah being angry, which is a characteristic of His actions. That Allah Ta'ala becomes angry at the time when someone, or if the woman, the Muslim woman, does this act or falls into this prohibition, then as a result of that action or that type of action, which is impermissible, happening at a specific time, then Allah Ta'ala becomes angry with her. Notice that it says that the la'na, the malaika, that it took place until what? The morning. And in the second part, that Allah will remain angry with her, and that the anger, that likewise, it can stop at a certain time. That time is if the husband or spouse is pleased with her. So if her husband and spouse pleased with her, then that necessitates what, everyone? That the anger stops at a certain time. And we said that the characteristic of Allah Ta'ala of His actions, it happens from one time to the next. It happens from one time to the next. And it does not happen all at the same time, or as they say, simultaneously at the same time, as the Mu'tazila says. As that's absolute nonsense. We believe that the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happens from one time to the next. Allah Ta'ala created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. After He created the creation, then, as we know, it says, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Then He ascended upon the arsh, or above the arsh, Then He ascended above the arsh. Meaning after the creation of the heavens and the earth. It had that the ascension of Allah took place at a time. And likewise, the coming of the day, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes on the day of resurrection, characteristic of maji', of coming on the day of resurrection, in order to judge between the creation, that will happen at a time, meaning the day of resurrection. Meaning it hasn't taken place yet. Allah has not come yet. Has Allah come yet? No, He has not come yet. That characteristic of His actions, which is maji', Him coming, will not take place until the day of resurrection. So you'll find that these characteristics happen from one time to the next. As we discussed last class. As far as the deviant sects that either distort these meanings or you'll find that they negate it altogether, starting with the Mu'tazila and the Asha'ira. And you could say it include the Maturidiyya, which we'll discuss later. The belief of the Asha'ira is more prevalent amongst the Muslims due to the fact that a lot of the majority, if not the majority of the Muslim world, have been affected by the Aqidah of the Asha'ira. And if you want to say Asha'ira, the more correct way we could say is the Aqidah the Kullabiyya. Due to the fact that the Asha'ira, the one who is in charge or the head of this particular deviant sect, made Tawbah, who is Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari rahimahullah. However, what the people of the Asha'ira believe is the belief of the Kullabiyya. The belief of the Kullabiyya. But at any rate, you'll find that the people who've been affected by the Aqidah of the Kullabiyya, they are called the Asha'ira. They're called the Asha'ira. What is the belief of the Asha'ira in regards to these characteristics? You'll find, if you look at your book in Buloogh Al-Maraam, what do you find, everyone? You'll find that the Prophet ﷺ affirmed that Allah has the character, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirms the characteristic of sakhat. Sakhat. Sakhat meaning anger. Anger. Sakhat means ghadab or sakhat or karaha. As Ahlul Sunnah, we believe these characteristics. That Allah Ta'ala has the characteristics of sakhat and ghadab and karaha. That Allah Ta'ala has the characteristics of anger, and ghadab and wrath, his wrath, and karaha and hatred. Allah Ta'ala has these characteristics. Number one, because Allah affirmed it for Himself. And likewise, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ affirmed it for Allah. For example, the hadith of the Messenger of Allah, we could start from the book of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْكَافِرِينَ. Allah does not love the kafirin. He does not love the disbelievers. Or إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ. That He does not love the oppressors, or He does not love the disbelievers. You'll find that Allah Ta'ala affirms for Himself that He has the characteristic of hating certain things, hating certain people, hating certain acts, and hating certain affairs or things that people want, people do with acts. Allah has affirmed this in His book. He has affirmed that that when they committed a certain act, that He became angry with them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, فَلَمَّا آسَفُونَا انْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ. When they made us angry, we took retribution from them. فَلَمَّا آسَفُونَا. Asafuna in the Arabic language, as we know, also means when they made us angry. When they made us angry, meaning they did an act at a specific time. As a result of it, Allah's anger descended upon them due to a certain act they committed or a certain type of disobedience they committed. As a result of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger descended upon them. So the characteristics, if you want to say, of sakhat and ghadab and karaha, of anger and wrath and hatred, all have been affirmed in the Kitab and Sunnah. Also, likewise, the opposite of that. The characteristics are the opposite of all three of those characteristics. For example, mahabba, rida, and rahmah, the mercy, and the love, and Allah being pleased. Those characteristics, which are the opposite of the three we just mentioned, all likewise have been affirmed in Kitab and Sunnah. We believe Allah loves certain people and He loves certain acts. He loves the muhsineen. He loves the siddiqeen. He loves the shuhada. He loves the salihin. Allah loves ta'ah. Allah loves tawheed. Allah loves sunnah. Allah loves obedience. He loves the people of Tawheed, the people of Iman. He's pleased with the people of Tawheed and Iman and uprightness and obedience. And He loves certain acts. All this has been in the Kitab, affirmed in the Kitab, and in the Sunnah, and the Ijma', in the Book of Allah, in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and the consensus of the ulama who are the Sahaba. So Ahl Sunnah affirms the anger of Allah. They affirm the hatred of Allah and the wrath of Allah. Similar to that, they affirm the love of Allah, the pleasure of Allah, meaning Him being pleased, and the mercy of Allah. All these affairs have been affirmed and established in Kitab and Sunnah, and the Ijma', and the consensus of the Sahaba, with no ikhtilaf whatsoever in these affairs. The Asha'ira, which is more prevalent in the Muslim world today, they distort these meanings. They'll say that the ghadab or the sakhat or the karaha of Allah, these characteristics that are the characteristics of Allah's actions, they return it back to another characteristic. They say all three of these characteristics, for example, ghadab, wa sakhat, wa karaha, and mahabba, and rahma, and rida, Allah's pleasure, Allah's love, Allah's mercy. And if you want to go back to what? Anger and wrath and hatred. They return it back to one characteristic. They say all these characteristics means irada. Irada. What Allah wants or what He intends. That's what they say. They say irada. Irada to what? What does Allah want? Meaning if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means when He says He hates or He detests or He's angry, that means what Allah wants as far as His punishment for one. Iradat al-uquba or iradat al-uquba or iradat al-intiqam, or what Allah wants as far as taking retribution or punishment. That's in regards to anger and hatred and wrath. Then they'll say in regards to mahabba, what Allah wants as far as ikram wa ithabat al-abd. What Allah wants, what He intends as far as honoring the servant or giving a servant a reward. So you'll find that they return all these characteristics back to one characteristic, which is sifatul irada, the characteristic of what Allah wants or intends. That characteristic of irada, as we discussed last class, is a characteristic of Allah's essence. Irada, sifatul irada, what Allah wants or what Allah intends. What He Tabarak wa ta'ala wants or intends is a characteristic of His essence, not a characteristic of His actions. Sifat al-irada is a characteristic of Allah's intent, of His essence. You'll find that Allah, as we know in the poetry, it says, huwa al-hayatu, huwa al-kalam, huwa al-hayatu, what's the 7 characteristics? No, here it is. هو الكلام والحياة والبصر سمع إرادة وعلم واقتدر. That's the 7. إرادة, if you say هو الحياة والكلام والبصر سمع إرادة وعلم واقتدر. That's the 7. Irada, characteristic what Allah intends, is a characteristic of His essence, not a characteristic of His actions. You'll find that they distort the meaning of all those characteristics by returning them back to one characteristic. They say anger is what Allah wants as far as retribution, for example. Or they say that the wrath or the anger of Allah is what Allah wants as far as retribution or punishment. That is incorrect. That is not the belief of Ahlul Sunnah. You'll find that they distort the meaning, and which is incorrect, which is in opposition to what has been established in Kitab and Sunnah. You cannot say that all these characteristics all been what? Go back to one characteristic. You just mentioned 6 characteristics. All return back to one characteristic of Sha'ira. They all return back to the characteristic of irada, which is incorrect. And not only do they just distort the meaning by explaining all these characteristics with one characteristic, they also say that it also means what comes as a result of the characteristic. What do we mean by that? Or what they call lazima hadhi sifa. For example, they say that the anger of Allah, or the wrath of Allah, or the anger of Allah, or the wrath of Allah, or the hatred of Allah is what Allah wants as regards to retribution and punishment. As we know, if Allah Ta'ala is angry upon one, what that comes as a result of it, which is what necessitates from that is that Allah will probably, more than likely, punish the one. If they don't make tawbah, He will punish them. So not only do the Asha'ira distort the meaning of these characteristics with another characteristic, which is irada, they also add on another error and another mistake, where they say it's what Allah wants as far as punishment. That's for what it necessitates. That's also incorrect. So you'll find that the Asha'ira say that these meanings or these characteristics go back to one characteristic, which is irada. Irada meaning what Allah intends or what Allah wants, which is incorrect. Then they add on another error. They say what these characteristics, what they necessitate. So they explain it with irada, then they add on another error where they say, no, we don't affirm anger of Allah. We don't affirm the wrath of Allah, nor Allah Ta'ala's hatred for affairs. We don't say that. We say that all returns back to another characteristic, which is irada. Then they also add on to it what necessitates from those characteristics, meaning if Allah hates a certain affair, that doesn't mean that. It means what Allah wants as far as retribution or punishing his slave or his servant. So they distort the meaning by affirming these characteristics with another characteristic and lazimu hadhi sifa, and what this characteristic necessitates, which is all wrong. All of that is wrong. Ahlul Sunnah, we affirm the characteristic we affirm the characteristic for what it says, as far as the general meaning, of course, without trying to find its kayfiyah of knowing how it is, and it does not resemble the anger of the creation, as we'll discuss, inshallah, why they fell into this type of distortion. It does not resemble the anger of the creation. Ahlul Sunnah affirms the characteristic by itself. We affirm and say, for example, the anger of Allah is the anger of Allah. That's it. We do not explain that characteristic with another characteristic by saying, no, the anger of Allah means irada, that it means what? What Allah wants or intends. We do not say that. We say that the anger of Allah is the anger of Allah. And we say how Al-Imam Malik have mentioned that tremendous athar, where we say his tremendous profound statement, which is a qa'idah for Ahlul Sunnah and all of the categories and all of the characteristics and names of Allah. We say Allah's anger is known, meaning the meaning to us is known. How Allah becomes angry is not known. Faith in it is obligatory. To ask about is bid'ah, meaning to ask how it is. We say that the wrath of Allah is known, sakhat of Allah is known. How Allah becomes His wrath, how Allah Ta'ala's wrath is not known. Faith in it is obligatory to ask about bid'ah. Similar to that, the hatred of Allah is known. How Allah hates, not known. Faith in it is obligatory, ask about His bid'ah. To now, return all these characteristics back to irada, which is a characteristic of Allah's essence, like we talked about and discussed, is incorrect. طيب, what's the reason why the Asha'ira fell into this distortion? Why did they fall into this? For what reason? What was the reason that brought them into falling into this? Listen to what they say. They say, Al-Ghadab huwa infi'al al-nafs. Infi'al al-nafs. It's an emotion of a human being, or it's an emotion of the heart. Or when a heart is not inclined towards something. Or when oneself is not inclined towards liking something. So as a result of it, we negate these affairs because they're considered what? Naqs. In their minds, it's considered some type of incompleteness or deficiency. Firstly, in regards to refuting or rejecting this notion and nullifying this fallacy here, we say in regards to all the characteristics of Allah Ta'ala that you'll find that what the Asha'ira fell into, what they so-called flee away from, they fell into it. We'll mention this in every characteristic that Asha'ira, what they distort. They claim that they want to so-called glorify Allah. They say, La budda min tanzihi Allah anin naqa'is. That we want to glorify Allah upon imperfections. That He's far and raised above, high above imperfections. What they so-called flee away from, they fall into it. So they said, we asked them, what is the reason why you don't affirm ghadab, or wrath of Allah, or anger of Allah? Because they say that means for one not to be inclined towards something, or for oneself not to like something. And all these considered emotions. All these things are when the heart, or the anger means when the boiling of the heart becomes boiled, or the veins or the blood of a heart becomes boiled, and to the point where one wants to now unleash his emotions upon someone. What he say? غَلَيَانْ دَمِ الْقَلْبِ. That they said anger is the boiling of the blood in one's heart. So what you so-called tried to flee away from, you fell into it. That's why you distorted the meaning. You'll find that Ahl Ilm saying in regards to the Asha'ira, that you'll find that they say شَبَّهُ أَوَّلًا وَعَطَّلَ ثَانِيًا. They fell into resemblance first, then they negated secondly. So you ask them, why you fell into this? The reason why they fell into this distortion, this error, because they resembled Allah with the creation. When you hear the reason of why they negated, they say what? They say the boiling of blood in one's heart. What did they do? They resembled Allah with the creation in regards to this characteristic. So they say that does not befit Allah. So that's the reason why we distort the meaning and say that it means something else. The anger of Allah, boiling of one's blood in one's heart, does not befit Allah. So that's the reason why we distorted it and said it means something else. Or, for example, the love of Allah, similar to that. The love of Allah is like riqqa fil qalb. It's like lightness in the heart. Riqqatun fil qalb, as some of them say. Or mailun nafs, the inclination of one's soul to be towards something. Or have some softness or gentleness in one's heart. So what did they do again? What they're trying to flee away from, fell into it again. These do not befit Allah. They do not befit Allah because they're human emotions and it's lightness in one's heart. That's the reason why they fell into this type of deviance and this type of ilhad, or this deviation in the aspect of al-isma' wa sifat. All because they resembled the Creator with the creation. When you say riqqatan fil qalb, lightness in one's heart, that's how the creation or the human being becomes what? That's how he becomes angry or upset, or that's how he, the creation, loves. Not Allah Ta'ala. For verily, number one, in order to refute this type of ambiguity, sisters, you need to realize and take two types of principles. Number one is لازم صفات المخلوق لوازم صفات المخلوق لا تستلزم صفات الخالق. The qaida and the principle is this: what the creation needs for its characteristics, for verily the Creator does not need those same needs, or he does not have any need, nor does he have those lawazim for his characteristics. What do I mean by that? I'll say it again. لوازم صفات المخلوق لا تستلزم صفات الخالق. What the creation needs for its characteristics does not necessitate that Allah Ta'ala has those same lawazim or those same needs for his characteristics. What do we mean by that? In order for the creation to have the characteristic of anger or wrath or hatred or love or mercy or what have you, he needs to have a heart. He needs to have blood. He needs to have blood or a heart running through himself in order to have these what? These type of characteristics. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have, nor does he need, nor tabarak wa ta'ala does not need to have any of those characteristics. Excuse me. He does not have to have any of those needs in order to affirm his characteristic of what we just mentioned. Meaning, for example, Allah Ta'ala tells us in his book that he's created certain things that has characteristics, and they do not have what the human beings have to have those certain characteristics. He's created certain things from the creation. For example, the example of when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ passed by a rock that was given salams. When do we know that a rock has blood, lips, teeth, tongue, blood, in order to what? Have the characteristic of speech? It didn't have any of that. And despite of that, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ informed that there was a rock that gave him salams. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created certain things from the creation that could speak without having the same lawazim and the needs of the creation of the human beings in order to have that characteristic of speech. The human being needs a tongue to speak. The human being needs lips. The human being needs blood to run through his tongue. The human being needs all these different types of characteristics. He needs all these type of needs to have that characteristic of what? Of speech. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of his perfect capability, created things from the creation that can have these characteristics without having these needs of the creation in order to have that characteristic. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ informed us that there was a rock that gave him salams. When do we know a rock to have blood, a tongue, a jaw, a lips to talk? And despite of that, the rock talked. We talked about before, even the food. During the next time of the Messenger of Allah, which comes in the Sahihain, from his miracles that actually spoke. The food spoke, making tasbih, glorification, in the hands of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. When do we know food to have what? As the Sahaba said in the hadith, it's in the Sahihain. He said, we can hear the glorification of food in the hands of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. And we all were witnessing and hearing it. When do we know food to have lips, tongue, jaw, blood, veins, all to the end of it, or having a mouth or having teeth in order to have the characteristic of speech? Allah created certain things to have ihsas. Even when the Messenger of Allah was given the khutbah and he heard the jid'in nakhl of the date palm tree that was moaning, and it was crying, and it was moaning. Keep it open. It was moaning and it was crying, even though he was given the khutbah. So it had ihsas, it had feelings. When do we know that a date palm tree to have blood, veins, or what have you, or a mouth, or whatever? And despite of that, it had the characteristic where the Messenger of Allah and everyone heard, it was moaning. And we know that it has some type of feelings. even though it does not have blood, a mouth, a teeth, bones, or what have you. You'll find that there's narrations during the time of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, where rocks were coming down and they were moving. Or also the date that came. There's another miracle that I'll bring in the book, inshallah, where the miracle where the date came. And it came and it rolled to the Messenger of Allah. And it had type of what? Ihsas. It had type of what? Feelings. And when it obeyed what the Messenger of Allah said. Also the sun and the moon. We know that the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed has said, when Allah ta'ala told to, when Allah created the heavens and the earth, there's an ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this book, وَقَالَ لَهَا ائْتِنَا طَوْعًا أَوْ كَرَهًا قَالَتَا أَتَيْنَا طَائِعِينَ. That Allah ta'ala said to the heavens and the earth, come to us submitting, either by force or doing it by your will. They said that the heavens and the earth spoke to Allah and said, we come obediently and submitting to your command. When do we know that the seven heavens or the earths and the heavens have a bones, blood, skin, jaws, teeth, blood? And despite of that, they had the characteristic of speech. All this is what Shaykh al-Islam refuted, where he said Allah Ta'ala created certain things of the creation that has the characteristics of what we understand of certain things that the human being has, and despite of that, they do not have that lawazim, those same needs that the creation needs in order to have its characteristics, even though Allah created them to have the same characteristics, and they do not have those lawazim. They don't have those needs of having a jaw or teeth or bones or lips or tongue in order to have certain characteristics. The earth, the sun, the sun, likewise. We know that Allah Ta'ala said that it prostrate to him and that it asks his permission to prostrate under the arsh every day. And Allah Ta'ala one day will say to the sun, go back and return. We know that Allah Ta'ala on the day of resurrection, and we can go over and on to all these different ahadith, all these narrations that affirm that he has created certain things amongst the creation that has characteristics of what the human beings have, and still at the same time they do not have the lawazim or the needs of the human beings in order to have those characteristics. If that's been affirmed for certain things that Allah has created, where they do not have those lawazim, those same needs or those same traits that the human being needs in order to have those characteristics, what about Allah? How can you think it's far off that Allah Ta'ala will have those same lawazim in order to have his characteristics? Why would you think and say that anger is, for example, ghalayan dam al-qalb, the boiling of the blood in the heart? That's for the creation, not the creator. Allah does not have any need of having blood or a heart in order to have certain characteristics. That's only for the creation, where they have blood or a heart pumping. That's only for the creation, not for the creator. Allah tabarak wa ta'ala lahul mathalul a'la. He has the highest example. If Allah could create certain things that do not have these lawazim, these needs, in order to have the characteristics of what we understand of hatred and salams and love and what have you and speech, what about the creator? Allah does not have those lawazim. Why are you sitting so far? Allah Ta'ala does not have those lawazim. You're sitting far away. Allah Ta'ala does not have those lawazim. That's the reason why we say the qa'idah. In order to refute this falsehood, we say lawazim sifat al-makhluq la tastalzim sifat al-khaliq. What the creation needs for its characteristics does not necessitate that the creator has those same needs for his characteristics. I'll say it again. That is a qa'idah you have to write down. Lawazim sifat al-makhluq la tastalzim sifat al-khaliq. What the creation needs for its characteristics does not necessitate that the creator that the Creator has those same needs for His characteristics. The creation needs blood, skin, jaws, lips, heart, bones, blood flowing through Him in order to have the characteristics of love, mercy, anger, wrath, what have you. Not the Creator. The Creator does not have blood, skin, jaws, teeth in order for Him to talk. Allah Ta'ala does not have those lawazim. Just as Allah had likewise, like we said, put inside of certain affairs of the creation where they can talk and where they can understand, and they do not have these lawazim at all. Whether you have comprehension and that they have ihsas and that they can speak, and despite of that, none of them have blood and bones and veins in order to have the characteristic of speech, such as the rock that spoke to the message of Allah, such as the heavens, such as the earth who spoke to Allah, as Allah Ta'ala affirmed in His book, وَقَالَ لَهَا ائْتِنَا طَوْعًا أَوْ كَرْهًا قَالَتَا أَتَيْنَا طَائِعِينَ. Allah said that the heavens and the earth both said, we come to you submitting in obedience. So they spoke to Allah. When do we know that the heavens and the earth have blood, skin, a heart, veins flowing through it in order for it to speak? And Allah affirms that the heavens and the earth spoke to Him. It says, قَالَتَا أَتَيْنَا طَائِعِينَ. They said, we come to you submittingly, wholeheartedly, in obedience. So, that's to show that the heavens and the earth had speech, and they do not have the lawazim of the human beings, such as blood in the heart, in order to have the characteristic of speech, and even though they spoke. Similar to that on the day of resurrection. As we know, Allah Ta'ala has told us that the earth likewise will speak on the day of resurrection. As Allah Ta'ala said to the earth, as He made a whole surah on it, called Surah Al-Zilzal. As Allah Ta'ala talks about that the earth, يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا. On the day that the earth, it will tell and inform about what took place on it. It will speak to Allah. When do we know that the earth has bones, skin, heart, blood, skin, in order to speak? And despite of that, Allah has affirmed that the dunya, or the earth that we walk upon, will have the ability to speak to Allah on the day of resurrection, even though it does not have blood and skin in order to have the characteristic of speech. If that's for things that Allah has created, what about the Creator Himself? How can you think as far off to find that Allah Ta'ala, well, how can you even say, O Asha'ira, in order for Allah to have the characteristics of what we just mentioned, He has to have blood, skin, a heart, and teeth. You resemble Allah with the creation. That's the reason. As a result of it, you fell into distorting the meaning where you either by saying that Allah Ta'ala does not become angry, Allah Ta'ala does not hate, nor does He has wrath, nor does Allah love, nor does Allah please, nor is Allah have mercy. All of them go back to the characteristic of irada. Why? Because all these characteristics are emotions, they're boiling of blood, they're also inclination of human emotions and lightness in the heart. What did you just do, Asha'ira? You resembled Allah with the creation, and as a result of it, you distorted the meaning. So you said you resembled Allah Ta'ala by saying His characteristics resembles what the human being feels in the heart as far as blood running through it and lightness of the heart. That's the reason why they distorted it, and that's the reason why they returned all those characteristics back to one, which is sifat al-irada. Which is what? Which is incorrect. None of those characteristics, like we said, go back to another characteristic. It's impermissible to now explain one characteristic, which is sifatul al-fi'l, explaining the characteristic of Allah's actions by a characteristic of His essence, which is sifatul irada. All that's incorrect. Like we talked about before, Ahlul Sunnah says that the anger of Allah Ta'ala is an anger that befits Him and that does not resemble the anger of the creation. It's an anger that we know the general meaning. We know that's a characteristic of Allah's actions, and it happens at a specific time. And once the slave does something at a specific time, which would now necessitate the anger of Allah, it takes place. Likewise, similar to that, when the slave now does an act that would necessitate the love of Allah by him making tawbah at a specific time, then the characteristic of love now what? Takes place. Or it happens, excuse me. So these affairs are very important, brothers and sisters, that you have to know, because you will hear deviants out there of Muslims who say, no, Allah does not become angry. That means what Allah wants, as far as Him taking retribution or punishing the abd. We said that's incorrect. You cannot now interpret one characteristic with another characteristic and add on top of that another error by saying what it necessitates. Ahlul Sunnah, and I'm going to make it easy. Ahlul Sunnah affirms the characteristic for what it is, and we also affirm what it necessitates at the same time. Both. We affirm with Allah when He's angry, and what can come as a result of Allah's anger, which is what? Punishing the slave. You'll find that Ahlul Bid'ah do the exact what? Opposite. What they do is they say, no, it means another characteristic, and we take out the characteristic and just say, for example, no, it just means Allah's punishment. That's it. It's incorrect. We affirm the characteristic for what it is, and what can come as what can necessitate of that anger, which is what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishing the slave. We affirm both of them. But we do not say that none of these characteristics means the characteristic of Allah's irada. We do not say that. Do not say love means irada, or the pleasure of Allah means irada, or the rahmah of Allah means irada, or the anger of Allah means irada, or the karaha of Allah means irada, or the sakhat, or the anger or the wrath of Allah means irada. You'll find that they take all those characteristics and say they all mean irada. What Allah wants and intends, either as far as punishing the slave or as far as rewarding the slave. All of that's wrong. So we say, in regards to the Asha'ir or the Kullabiyah, this is what they say in regards to the characteristic of Allah's actions, which are all what? Incorrect. So this is what you need to be on guard against. When you hear the Asha'ir come with these type of ambiguities, it's incumbent upon one to know that what they will say, this is the reason why I'm saying it in the class now. So if you hear it, you'll be on guard and you'll be alarmed to know that this is batil, this is falsehood, and it could cause some type of discrepancy in your aqeedah. We believe Allah Ta'ala becomes angry. Allah Ta'ala subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes angry. Allah Ta'ala hates certain people and certain acts. And Allah Ta'ala also what? Loves certain people and certain acts. And Allah Ta'ala also is pleased with certain people and certain acts. And Allah Ta'ala also has mercy upon certain people. And Allah Ta'ala will also, as a result, the lazim, what it necessitates from love, being pleased, and mercy, is that Allah will honor the slave and He will give him a reward. We affirm the characteristic also likewise of what? It necessitates. Both. And if I have to say it again, I'll say it again. But at any rate, just to summarize everything, brothers and sisters, like we said, if you look in your books, the affirmation of Allah's wrath has been what? Has been affirmed. And Allah Ta'ala, this characteristic is a characteristic of perfection. This is a characteristic of perfection as a result of certain evil acts that one commits. If one commits an evil act, then these type of characteristics puts fear in us to abstain from that act. When we hear Allah becomes angry, we abstain from it. When we hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make, as a result of it, will punish the abd, he will abstain from it. That's the benefits of acknowledging and affirming these characteristics and their meanings, so they can have an impact on how you conduct yourself in a daily life. So if you come now and distort the meaning, that will now rock, and it will shift your belief system, which will come as a result of it a tremendous danger. So that's the reason why Ahlul Sunnah come and affirm these characteristics and saying that they do not resemble the characteristic of the creation, rather it's a characteristic that befits the Creator. طيب. Notice that it also says that the anger will remain upon the woman or the spouse until a certain time, until her husband is pleased with her. Just like we said, all the characteristics of Allah's actions, it happens from one time to the next. Similar to that, Allah's dissension every night. it happens at a certain time, then that action, like we said, is done, and then Allah Ta'ala what? That action stops, and then it happens again, repeatedly, every day and every night. At the third part of the last night, the Messenger of Allah gave us a certain time when it happens. So that's to let us know that the characteristics of Allah's actions happen from one time to the next. All those characteristics of His actions have what they call, they are hadithatul ahad. They happen from one time to the next. Allah's speech happens from one time to the next. Allah's anger happens from one time to the next. Allah Ta'ala loves from one time to the next, based upon what the abd or what the servant does of certain acts that might necessitate what? Either Allah's love or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger. And that's clear for anyone who has a sound understanding in which they have not been affected by the deviance of the Asha'ira, which is currently of today. So you'll find that the characteristic of when a woman rejects, when she rejects the actual, open that door for me. That the woman, when she rejects this certain type of character, when she rejects her call to the husband, when he asks her to come and to be intimate with her, that these are from the affairs in order to show that the haqq or the asl of the man, that his right is of what intimacy is origin, the origin of it is in his hands. It's in the hands of the man. That's the asl of the haqq of the man. The call to intimacy is for him. Not to deny that likewise that the woman does have haqq, that has a right for her chastity to be protected, based upon the fact that what? Likewise, the man should try to satisfy his wife. But the origin of Ahl Ilm, based upon this hadith, what they mention and say, based upon this narration, is to show that that haqq is for the man, that it originally returns back to him. Especially if the man is fulfilling his obligations and doing what he's supposed to do in the household. And like we said, and the woman is excused due to something of a reason that might be a cause for her rejecting his call, but it's incumbent upon the woman to clarify that. If she's excused due to her monthly cycle, or she's excused due to a sickness, or due to some type of exhaustion that might have happened to her on that particular day, then a woman should apologize to her husband and just clarify it. Should clarify it to him, not in a manner that is rude or a manner that's disrespectful, but do it in a manner that shows courtesy, and it shows respect, and it shows dignity and honor for her husband, and not to do it in a fashion that is what? Disrespectful. But to clarify to her husband and make it clear that my reason, for example, telling to her husband, I apologize due to the fact of such and such, that I can't do it due to such and such. Or if you would excuse me, as we know a lot of our sisters are working these days, and for the men to have more patience with their wives due to the fact that a lot of them are supporting our households. So if the woman is extremely tired due to a lot of domestic duties pertaining to caring for the children or her job or what have you, and she comes with a legitimate excuse, then the husband should pardon her. And that is a legitimate excuse for her not to fall into the prohibition of the hadith. But if the origin is, like we just mentioned, that she does not have an excuse, and as you'll find that Ahl Ilm mentioned that rejection of the call can be one of three types. A woman could say no if she does not have any of these excuses that we just mentioned. She could say it either due to verbally, or by action, or by ignoring her husband. All these things are impermissible. So it's not just not responding to him verbally, for example, ignoring him, or saying something that is very disrespectful, like, no, I'm not coming to you. Or, for example, by action, to show some type of disgust. For example, in our communities, the sucking the teeth and rolling the eyes and the crack in the neck or what have you, of what certain people do these communities. Those type of things are all impermissible if, like we said, if there's not a legitimate reason due to the fact of what we just mentioned. The origin is that the woman has to answer the call, and if that's the way where she wants to pardon herself, then she needs to clarify it in a respectable manner. Not disrespectfully where she raises her voice or uses some type of vulgar speech or what have you, but clarifying and pardoning herself in a very respectable manner to let her husband know that basically I cannot do it right now due to these circumstances. But the origin is that the haqq is that if it's in the hands of the man, that the woman has to what? Obey her husband in this regard. And that is part of the maqasid al-zawaj, that from the reasons or what is the goals of marriage is to protect one from falling into affairs that are not permissible, to guard one's chastity, so he does not fall, or him or her does not fall into what? Impermissible, prohibited affairs that might lead to something that's displeasing to Allah and His Messenger, or displeasing to Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger, but we'll say to displeasing to Allah due to the fact that the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu has passed away, but we'll say what is in opposition to what the Messenger of Allah commanded. So two things that happen, as we said, the angels curse the woman, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also angry with her. So I'm sure that any woman does not want the angels cursing her, and at the same time also Allah being angry with her at the same time. I'm sure no woman wants that. As we know, the dua of the malaika, like we talked about before, are answered. That they're answered, and likewise, no one wants their Lord to be angry with them. I'm sure no woman wants that. So how come anyone think that if their Lord is angry with them, how they're going to prosper and succeed? And that's how we need to look at affairs. The problem is, what a lot of us is, we think that we can cheat Allah's rules and still attain happiness and bliss. That's what we do. A lot of us want to try to circumvent or bypass the boundaries of Allah or transgress them. And then at the same time, we want our cake and eat it too, to say now I want to attain, I should be happy due to the fact that you were doing affairs or indulging in affairs that were displeasing to Allah, in which you were not given any tawfiq in, or you were deprived of the tawfiq of Allah due to that particular acts that you were indulged in. We have to now look to our acts and look to ourselves and what we have done. And as a result of it, you'll find, like we said, a lot of people are deprived of tawfiq in their relationships due to certain acts they probably committed before the relationship. Then they expect to have a bliss and success, and they're supposed to deserve all this happiness and this blissful life and this happy life due to the fact that I was doing something that angered Allah before the marriage. As we discussed on many occasions, brothers and sisters, if they want successful marriage, do it and start it off in the right way. Do not be on the phone with these women, and women do not be on the phone with these men, and also doing the social media things, sending pictures back and forth and dating, and then falling into certain affairs that are displeasing to Allah. Know for sure these hadith here, which we've been discussing, are all a hadith in order to affirm that Allah Ta'ala is displeased and He hates certain acts. And if you indulge in certain acts in which Allah Ta'ala is displeased with, how do you really think you're going to succeed and prosper and be happy ultimately? Rather, we see the opposite. Due to the fact of the sins of the people and their disobedience, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has cast depression in people's hearts. Allah ta'ala has cast depression, sadness, grief, remorse, and people losing their minds as a result of the people's disobedience and the acts they have committed. That's why a lot of these marriages, like we said, they fail. They fail due to the fact of what? Due to the fact of opposing Allah and the commands of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. As a result of it, the relationships they're not blessed. And when your relationship is not blessed, of course you're going to be depressed. And I think that rhymed. When your relationship is not blessed, of course you're going to be depressed. So as a result of it, if one wants the proper way of attaining bliss, or excuse me, not bliss, but some type of happiness of this dunya, and from the love or the pleasures of this dunya, is to be happily married. Must be a lot of kids on that sister side today. There's a lot of kids on that sister side today, huh? Hey, outside. Hey, outside. That's clear. That's clear. I can hear them on this side clear as day. Oh, it sounded like they was inside. You can. What is that outside? You can leave them up there. الله أكبر الله أكبر. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمود الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعث مقام محمود ذي وعده. طيب. So like we were saying in this regard, that they said about the angels that they cursed the woman. This is from the proofs and evidences that the angels, that they comprehend, and that the angels also likewise, they detest certain acts, and that they also have ihsas. فهذا يدل على إحساس الملائكة وأن الملائكة لهم أحاسيس. That the malaika also have senses for certain things. That the angels comprehend, that the angels understand, and that the angels love certain acts, and they also love certain people, and they also make dua for certain people, such as the people of Iman, and they also are angry with certain people, and they hate certain people or certain acts. From the adillah of upon this is what the Messenger of Allah here mentioned. It clearly says that the angels curse the woman who disobeys her husband in this regard, if it's not a legitimate excuse. So this is also to affirm that the malaika also have what? They also likewise understand and they comprehend, and they also likewise understand and they have ihsas. They have senses to know certain things. So when the angels now curse the woman, knowing, like we said, they know that she committed an act that's tremendous, that's azim, that she did a muharram azim. She did a tremendous act which came as a result of it, that the la'na, the malaika, them making dua against her, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expel her from His mercy, which is tremendous. So like we said, this is not something light that the woman should just brush off. Like, oh, subhanAllah, my husband, he need to know my circumstances. But rather, like we talked about before, take in consideration of our communities due to the fact that the income basis of a lot of our households in our communities in general, a lot of them are help from the women that the men receive. But if the woman, like we said, is exhausted, she has a legitimate excuse where she can pardon herself, then the man should accept it from her due to the fact of exhaustion or her taking care of the children and her also working. But if that's not the case, and the man is totally fully taking care of his wife, fully, and she has no legitimate excuse, whether due to her monthly cycle or what have you, or some sickness in her body or a cold where she doesn't feel too good, if she does not have those excuses, and she's just doing it just to be smart, and that she's just doing it just to be spiteful, or she's just doing it just to make her husband upset due to some satanic whisper that Shaitan put in her mind, then this applies to her. This applies to her. where, like we talked about, keep in mind, our sisters, two affairs happen. The curse of the angels and Allah being angry with her. At the same time, that's something tremendous. And we talk about that. Shaykh Uthaymeen even mentioned another narrative in his explanation. He says, I regret for the woman who falls into this act during the times of the winter, where the nights are very long. That to commit and fall into this act, and the angels are cursing her a very long time during the night. For the nights in the winter nights, especially during the nights of winter where they are long, he says, I regretfully will fear for a woman that will fall into this during the winter nights, where the days are short and the nights are long. So we say that the angels, these are from the adillah, and there are many evidences and proofs that they comprehend. That the angels comprehend and they understand, and that they love certain acts, and they also hate certain acts. They love the worship of Allah, and they make dua for the mu'mineen, and also likewise, like we talked about before, they hate certain acts, and even acts to the point where they will even invoke and make the curse of Allah be upon a woman who's even from the people of Iman, if she falls into this type of act. Does not necessitate she's a kafir at all. However, it does necessitate that she committed a tremendous act, due to the fact, like we talked about before, that the men or the society we live in is a filthy, disgusting society, especially we live in these days, where we see all the different types of exposure and the different types of you see how women are ostentatious, and all the different types of temptation that is made for us on a daily basis. And then one of the maqasid, or the goals of these particular narrations, is to let us know how we strive to protect one another from falling into haram. And from those ways is what the Messenger of Allah gave instructions here in this narration, where the woman, if she does not have a justifiable excuse, that to try to aid her man in remaining chaste and chaste and protecting his private part from falling into what is prohibited. And that is something that is from the maqasid al-zawaj, for protection of one falling into prohibitions that will anger Allah and oppose the commands of the Messenger of Allah. And like we talked about before, there's no way that a person can attain happiness in opposition to what Allah Ta'ala has made as or set as a boundary. You transgress it, then you expect that you're going to be happy in the end. Rather, it's going to be the total opposite. The majority of people, why they complain about depression these days, is due to the fact of their disobedience to Allah and His Messenger. Like we said, people want to cheat Allah's transgress His boundaries, and they want to cheat Allah's rules, go around them, circumvent them, bypass them, and then in the end they say, why am I unhappy and why am I so depressed? Look to your hands at what you put forth. Look at what you've done, what you've been putting on the internet. Like it's so bad now, people even brag about their sins. They're on the internet bragging that I got a boyfriend. I'm bragging I got a girlfriend. I'm bragging that I got tattoos. I'm bragging that I don't have my jilbab on. They brag about it now. Then those same people we ask, they say, I don't know why I'm so depressed. And they're on these social medias, these Facebook, and I call it fake book. Because it's a bunch of people that fraud like they're happy and knowing that they're miserable and knowing they got a bunch of problems going on in their life. I called it fraud and fake book. Because it's a bunch of people frauding and faking. Like their life is so perfect, knowing that your life is in shambles. Knowing that you got abundance of problems going on in your life because you what? You disobeyed Allah and His Messenger. And as a result of it, you complaining why you're so sad and miserable and why you're depressed. Because you're bragging about your sins. After Allah kept it covered, you exposed it. As a result of it, you became depressed and sad. Exposing your sins, bragging about it. I got my girlfriend. I got a tattoo. I got my hair out. Man bragging on the internet, I got this girl sitting on his lap, smiling, laughing. Then you wonder why you're so unhappy. Then you wonder why you're so depressed. Bragging how I'm in the club, bragging how I got this drink in my hand. And then you expect you really expect you're going to be happy? I'm asking. You have to look what your hands put forth. and then bring yourself into account. The reason why people are so depressed and crazy and losing their mind, because of them committing certain acts. And then they, not only if Allah Ta'ala bestows His mercy upon us by covering up our acts, we expose it by going on social media bragging about it. And you'll find that they say that the dangers of this is because as if you're calling the people to come do it. There's nothing wrong with it. Then on top of that, you're making Islam look bad because the kuffar are the first ones to say, so-and-so Muslim does that. Why are you saying it's not permissible to do that? So you made it a fitna upon the kuffar now where they're confused. So-and-so toast to the club. So-and-so had seen them had a drink in their hand. So-and-so Muslim, but she don't cover right. She had tight jeans on. So-and-so man had all these tattoos on his body. He was just bragging about on the internet last night. He has a girlfriend. Matter of fact, he brought his girlfriend over to me and I met her. That's the fitna wild. Allah Ta'ala says, if you're weak, make tawbah between you and Allah. Don't brag about it. Why? Because it gives the first, number one, the danger of it is that you're calling the people to it. Secondly, on top of that, it's because you're now making a fitna for the kuffar and the people who want to come to the fold of Islam, thinking those acts is what? Legislated. And you confuse them now when you do it in front of them. Aren't you supposed to listen to music? Yeah, you know. I know, yeah, I mean, the best thing you could do is just say, listen, I'm a weak Muslim. I'm just weak. This is wrong what I'm doing. That's the best thing you can say. That's the least what you can say to the kuffar. That what I'm doing, not being covered, is wrong. I need to make tawbah, get myself together. But what the truth is that women's supposed to cover. Men being in the club. What you in the club for? You Muslim. What you drinking? The best thing, the least you can say, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm just weak right now. I'm weak. But I'm not supposed to be drinking. I'm not supposed to have this girl next to me with a naked, half-naked, non-Muslim kafir right next to me that I'm probably, who knows what I'm doing with. This is all wrong. But inshallah, I hope that Allah Ta'ala will what? Give me tawfiq to lead this off and get myself together. But ultimately, akhi, don't think that this is right. This is all wrong. That's the least you can say. But the problem is people now, they want to justify it. Oh, it's difference of opinion. Now you want to start talking against the religion now? It's difference of opinion you having a girlfriend? It's difference of opinion you having a weave in your hair? Difference of opinion you having tight jeans on? Difference of opinion you now getting tattoos and bragging about it? Going to the islands with no shoes, no clothes on? That's all. It's a difference of opinion in that. See, now you're starting to look for dalil now to justify your evil. That's when it becomes dangerous. Because now Allah knows best, you're starting to make it halal. That's why it becomes dangerous. Because when you now start to make haram hacks halal, that's when now it's starting to become very, very dangerous. Because that's the dangers of sins. Dangers of sins now is when you start to now legitimize it. Where that's why they said that the dhunub or ma'asi baridatul kufr, it leads to the road of disbelief. So that's the reason why we tell people now, brothers and sisters, if Allah Ta'ala has covered up your sins, don't brag about it. Don't go on the internet. If Allah has sealed it, covered it up, make tawbah between you and Allah Ta'ala. The worst thing you could do now is brag about it. Like you're bragging that, oh Allah, I know this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commands this, but hey, I'm open with it. What you want me to do? And then people wonder at the end of the day why they're so miserable and depressed. This is the reason. Disobedience to Allah and His Messenger. And Allah's control of everyone's heart. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to continue to throw depression and sadness and grief in your heart, it will never stop until Allah wants to stop it. You have no control. Allah will continue. And then may Allah ta'ala protect us and you from depression and grief and sadness. But if we do not rectify our affairs, it will continue. And you know what it leads down the road to? It leads down the road to what? It leads down the road of destruction and a bunch of people losing their minds. And that's what you see happening today. So if you want to now attain what is the most greatest happiness in this dunya, the greatest happiness in this dunya is not to attain a whole bunch of worldly things and still be tortured in your heart, where you're having a lot of depression and grief. That is the worst form of torture, where you have everything worldly and you're still not happy. That's the worst form of torture. Worst form is that you have everything you want and you're still miserable. The greatest of honor and the greatest is when you do not have much or you might have a lot. And that Allah puts contentment and happiness in your heart, regardless of your circumstance, whether you're rich or poor. That's the greatest feeling. And that's the Jannah. That is the paradise that Shaykh al-Islam was talking about. He said the paradise of this dunya is of Iman, and that Allah put contentness in your heart and happiness in your heart, regardless of any circumstance you have, any circumstance that you're in, whether you're poor or rich. He said that is the paradise and the goal that every human being sets out for. And there's only a few that can actualize it. Because there's only a certain way that you can go about attaining it. But how we are today, we think we can go around what Allah and His Messenger have ordained and His Messenger commanded and still try to meet their goal of contentment. It won't happen. I'm going to cheat people. I'm going to be angry to people. I'm going to be mean to people. I'm going to treat people with disrespectful. I'm going to have a bad attitude, batting. I'm going to curse at people and be loud. And I'm still going to be happy at the end of the day. It's not going to happen. Like we said, brothers, keep in mind the goal, and I'm going to end it here. The ultimate goal in this dunya is not to gather a lot of worldly things. It's that way. The ultimate goal in this dunya is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you happy and content in your heart regardless of your economical level, whether you be poor or rich. That Allah wa ta'ala put qana'a in your heart, contentment and happiness in your heart. That is the paradise of this dunya. That's it. When you feel happy and you don't have much, or you have happy and you're satisfied with what you have, and you can stop and say, I have enough, and I am happy and content with what Allah has decreed for me, and I am happy regardless of what type of circumstance I'm in financially. That is the ultimate goal of every human being. That's what we strive for. That's the paradise of this dunya. The kuffar, in the type of environment we live, everyone thinks abundance or accumulation of a lot of dunya is what's the ultimate goal. Everyone thinks that. Having a lot of money is the ultimate goal. Having a lot of cars is the ultimate goal. Having a lot of children, having a lot of wealth, yeah, that's part of a partial affair as far as if it's in the halal. No doubt. The mu'min strives to be independent. Doesn't try and want to be in poverty, to be begging. If he's in poverty, he's begging, that's what's dispraiseworthy. But if he has little and he has what suffices him and he's not relying and begging the people and Allah ta'ala puts happiness in his heart, he is the king of the dunya. Because the whole thing is what? Just like Imam al-Shafi'i said in his poetry. Imam al-Shafi'i said in his poetry, he said, دَعِ الْأَيَّامَ تَفْعِلُ مَا تَشَاءُ وَطِبْ نَفْسًا إِذَا حَكَمَ الْقَضَاءُ وَلَا تَجْزَعْ لِحَادِثَةِ اللَّيَالِ وَفَمَا لِحَوَادِثِ الدُّنْيَا بَقَاءُ وَكُنْ رَجُلًا عَلَى الْأَهْوَالِ جَدَّ وَشِمَّتُكَ السَّمَاحَةُ وَالْوَفَاءُ وإذا ما كنت ذا قلب قنوع فأنت ومالك الدنيا سواء وإذا نزلت بساحته المنايا فلا أرض تقيه ولا سماء وأرض الله واسعة ولكن إذا نزل القضاء ضاق الفضاء. Listen what Imam al-Shafi'i said in his poetry. He said in his poetry, دع الأيام تفعل ما تشاء وطب نفسا إذا حكم القضاء ولا تجزع لحادثة الليالي فما لحوادث الدنيا بقاء وكن رجلا على الأهوال جدا وشيمتك سماحة ووفاء. Is this part of the poetry? وإذا ما كنت ذا قلب قنوع فأنت ومالك الدنيا سواء. He says, and if you are a person with a content heart, then you and the king of the dunya are equal. You and the king of the dunya are equal. So if you have contentments in your heart, Allah Ta'ala will make you like the kings, everyone equal. How do you do it? You do it by carrying out what Allah and His Messenger have commanded you and staying away from the prohibitions. And you do it to the best of your ability. Allah Ta'ala will give you tawfiq. We'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Any questions about the lesson?